Hey, good morning, Scott Luton, Greg White. Early on our Talent Tuesday, but welcome to Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Greg, how you doing?
I'm awake. I'm doing great. Everybody probably knows this is a little early to be on the air for me, but we have to be respectful of Radu's time because he is in Singapore, correct?
That's right.
So it's nighttime, his time.
Hey, when you
Get
can
dinner for us.
That's right. When you can sign the Rock of Singapore to join our live stream, you work around his schedule. So,
that's right.
No, kidding aside, Radu is a great friend of the show. We're talking about Radu Palamariu with Alcott Global.
Right.
Outstanding guru and talent. He's got a great event coming up. We're going to dive into all of that on this first edition of our Talent Tuesday here on Supply Chain Now. So stay tuned for what should be a very informative but fun conversation. And Greg, what's our aim?
To raise your supply chain IQ.
Outstanding, man. You're ready for that
your
question.
Supply chain talent IQ, particularly today, right?
That is right. All right. So a quick programming note before we get started here today with Radu. If you enjoy our live stream episode, be sure to check out our podcasts. Today, we published the latest in our Logistics with Purpose series, which we love. Right. One of our favorites, certainly one of my favorites, that is made possible by our great friends over at Vector Global Logistics. So you can find that and subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. Greg reminded me we're going to have to ask Radu about his podcast.
Yeah.
One thing that I did not add to my notes here today. All right.
You want me to remind you?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So with no further ado,
let's do this.
Let's bring in Radu Palamariu, Managing Director, Asia Pacific with Alcott Global. Hey, Radu, how you doing?
Hey, guys. I'm very good. Pleasure to be here with you, and many thanks for the invitation and also the warm welcome. I really hope I can live up to the expectations because, I'm not sure anybody regards me as a guru, but, I really appreciate that introduction.
Well, great to have you. So look forward to catching up with you.
Definitely. Now, we know that most of the world knows Radu, but for the 3 or 4 folks that may not, would love to get, let our audience get to know you a little better, Radu. So first off, tell us where you're from and give us an anecdote or two about your upbringing.
So originally I was born in Romania, actually, in Eastern Europe. So I'm not connected though to Dracula. I was born in Transylvania, which is the same.
Of course.
Region. Hence, also that explains why I like garlic, because you are somewhat
got to keep yourself safe and
stay safe by hook or by crook. And actually, it works in a number of other ways, the garlic, because even if you get attacked, usually that smell will repent any sort of robber. But so I come from Romania, Eastern Europe. About 12 years ago, I came to Singapore. It was a certain act of randomness, because at that time, I didn't really even know where Singapore was. It was 2008, and Singapore wasn't as well known as it is today. We've had a lot of things happening in this 12 years. But, I got an amazing opportunity to come here as a management consulting, in a management consulting firm. Mm-hmm. I took it and never looked back, I guess. So now 2 kids later, well plugged into Singapore, into Asia Pacific, and basically enjoying a lot this part of the world.
Great.
Love it. Hey, real quick, I got to recognize a lot of folks that tuned in for Radu's perspective here today. We've got Sean Conrad. It's been a while. Sean, hope this finds you well. Early bird gets the worm. Indeed. Of course, Don Long. Great to have him here. He is not our spelunker. Spelunkers are in caves. Our mountain climber. Don, hope this finds you well. DC Sfagola. Did I get that right? Close. Sfagola. That's right. DC, good morning. Yes, for me in particular, but Tom is tough for me, evidently. DC, hope this finds you well. Appreciate. I've enjoyed your content here lately on LinkedIn. Looking forward to our July event. And let's see here, Hani is checking us out on LinkedIn. Great to have you part of the live stream here. And it would not be a live stream, Radu and Greg, unless we had Nerfod with us here.
Yes.
So he only knows 19,000 Radus from Romania, Radu. So I'll tell you, Nerfod has been our resident comedian here on our live streams, and I'm sure
hair critic. I just want everyone to know that I was very careful with my hair this morning because I knew that Nerfod would be on here.
That's right. That's right. And one more, Emmanuel, great to have you here on LinkedIn with us on the live stream. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, so Radu, if I heard you correctly, about 12 years ago, you took a whim. You weren't even sure where Singapore was on the map. And then, gosh, 12 years later, you're rocking and rolling. The business appears by all outside observations to do really well. Of course, you and a lot of folks know you within industry, and we'll talk about one of your latest big industry global plays here. Things appear to do real well. What's it like? What have you come to really love about living in Singapore and the local culture and the local market? What do you enjoy the most?
Durian.
Durian, yes. So, but truth be told, so I think I should explain for the people that may not know what durian is. I certainly had no idea and no clue what it was 12 years ago. So basically, I was given the description that it's this thing that smells like rotten onions. So it paints a picture, right? So about 6 months, I think, in my stay in Singapore, never wanted to go anywhere near that because rotten onions you don't really want to be eating. So for the also to describe it's like a spiky kind of a thing, right? So but yes, to your point, Greg, I tried it 6 months in and never looked back again. So it's one of those things where you either hate or love. And I definitely loved it. To me, it tastes like custard. Most people think that I'm nuts, which probably I am. But I like to think it in a positive way. And I love durian. So that's definitely one thing that I love about Singapore, Southeast Asia, and wherever you can find a durian. But on business note, I think Singapore is just an amazing, amazing place from an ease of doing business. I mean, they consistently rank. It's between them and New Zealand, right? Number one for ease of doing business. It's, when we set up Alcott Global, to give a sense to the audience, it took us 15 minutes. It's just insanely proactive systems. The government does so much things to make everything digital and seamless, right? Everything is done online. You basically never need to go to a physical office. So it's just amazing for doing business. And it is, for me, it's the best place in Asia to do business, and definitely is the heart of Southeast Asia, 100%. Now, for China, you can argue it's definitely Shanghai, most likely, or Beijing, one of the two, usually Shanghai. Right. But for Southeast Asia and the rest of Asia, I would say Singapore is that place. And if from here you can do business anywhere, and from just an ease of life as well, right? So literally, when we used to be able to fly, you fly into Singapore, right? Takes you 30 minutes, you're off, and you get home in 45 minutes max. You cannot do that anywhere else in Asia. It's just not possible. It's just not possible. You would spend 3 to 4 hours, airport traffic, right, and then home. So it's just to me, it's just an incredible place, and I would urge and encourage people to come visit if they can once, and why not have some business here.
Well, all right. So we want to next, but I'm going to give a few shout outs to some of the folks that have chimed in, but we want to ask you about Alcott Global, what the firm does, where you specialize, and then where you spend your time. So that's coming up next. But Greg, real quick, we've got quite the international audience with us here this morning. Chitachi is with us on LinkedIn from Nigeria. I hope this finds you well, sir. Let's see here. Anthony is tuned in via LinkedIn from Nairobi. Great to have you here. And Gwen is from Vietnam. Outstanding. And I think we've got one more here. Cigar. Good evening from India, also via LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is...
We've done this early enough that everybody hasn't gone to bed yet, right?
That's right. That is right. And
Although
LinkedIn
a
is
few people
proving,
have to be winding down like Radu right now.
and clearly LinkedIn's proven to be the international platform of choice here. Okay, so and thanks again to all of our attendees for tuning in for this conversation with Radu. All right, so Alcott Global, tell us about what the firm does, where you specialize, and in particular, Radu, where you spend your time.
What we like to say that we do now, and it has evolved. But at this current moment, when somebody asks me what does Alcott Global stand for, we stand for connecting the supply chain ecosystem in APAC and globally. So it's a big vision, it's big words, it's a mouthful, you can argue, but that's what we want to believe and we want to be trying to do. Now, how do we do that? How do we connect the supply chain ecosystem? There's a couple of things from a business perspective, and you can call them business units or services that we specialize in. So number one, executive search. So we have an arm that very much focuses on executive search within supply chain realm that we define for ourselves, because as many people, as many definitions of supply chain really, but we tend to keep things simple. It's plan, procure, make, deliver, the 4 pieces, as long as the role sits within those 4, right? So it can be chief operations officer, obviously, as well, chief supply chain officer, VP level, chief procurement officer, head of planning, and so on. We would do that. And also we work quite closely with adjacent industries, right? So then it would be shipping, logistics companies, transportation companies, delivery platforms like Uber, or, I'm just giving an example, Uber Freight and so on. So that's one chunk of the focus areas for us. The second chunk of the focus areas is what I would define as content. Now, content means many things. So for us, and obviously you guys are great at that as well. So we have a podcast as well, like you mentioned, for Greg to remind
Outstanding,
no problem. I'll do that.
Thanks, so, you remembered.
I'll do my shameless marketing.
You got me.
So, top podcast, apart from supply chain, the supply chain now. So we have Leaders in Supply Chain, where we basically started about 3 years ago as a side hustle, really. So the intent was, look, how can we basically get some of these C-level executives that are, some of them our clients, or some of them are people that we respect, to share ideas with the whole industry, make it in a seamless way, free way, accessible to all. Because you have all the events where you can potentially catch some of these gentlemen and men and women, but it's not easy. It's not easy to do that, and it's usually 100, 200, 300 people. So we started that, incredibly successful, and we had a lot of different C-level and CEOs and so on, and we're still going. Yep. Then we have articles. We have a YouTube series where we do some Ask a Headhunter series and a couple of tips and tricks for job seekers and so on. We put out a number of other things. So that's the content. And the third one and the last one, and it's kind of fresh off the shelf. We have decided to go into digital events for now. So we have put together, and we'll talk more about it. We have put together the Supply Chain Summit online. It's going to happen in July, and we have very proud to have a pretty good, great, I think, lineup of speakers, and we're going to start to do that as well.
Home run turnout.
Wow.
We've been seeing that. We're proud to be a media partner, and that virtual supply chain summit. All right, so Greg is about to take a deep dive with Radu on the talent market. To our audience, what we're going to be asking Radu with this next question is, what are some of his key observations related to the current talent market? Now, we all know it's a unique, challenging time, but we'd love for you to weigh in. Think about what you're seeing in the talent market. Put your comments in there. We'll, as we get through Radu's perspective, we'll share yours as well. One other shout out before, Greg, we get started on the talent conversation. Sylvia, who of course tunes in via Charleston on LinkedIn, today is her mom's 85th birthday. Hopefully you are making jam and taking your mom out, or having a nice special time with your mom here today. And Sylvia also knows quite a bit about the supply chain workforce. So we'll see what she weighs in with. All right, so Greg,
yeah,
I'll follow you here.
So like Scott said, give us some of the things you're seeing in the marketplace today. I know you focus, as you said, on senior, director, and above talent. So I'm interested in what you're seeing in terms of movement or just generally observations you have on the market today.
Yes, with pleasure. And I really want to encourage the active listeners and viewers of this. I'm thrilled to listen to their questions, and I think that makes the most, so definitely ask, and hopefully I'll be able to answer, right? So feel free to put me on the spot. This is
let's see what they can test you with, right?
Especially if you have to pick a fight with me, now is the right time, so go for it. So I would say number one, right? So number one, and I will before I start, I will reframe. I don't think I'm going to say anything that is rocket science. It's just that, a lot of the times we as human beings forget that it's about the fundamentals. And so I would say now more than ever, it's about the soft skills, right? So talent, is something that's pretty, pretty fluffy. So I'll try to make it a bit practical. So I think what companies really need in general, but especially now, right, is people that can drive and have excellent soft skills at that senior level within supply chain, right? Now, what do I mean by soft skills, right? Let's make it practical.
That was the next question. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, you have crisis management, which you can argue that it's a little bit of a combination between technical skills and soft skills, but I would say that it's more soft skills, right? You need to know, how do you manage the situation? First, how do you manage yourself, right? Because if you freak out, if you lose your shit, right? That's it. It's
don't panic, right?
Don't. Really simple things, but so it's a reality that in today's world, even before COVID, we as supply chain professionals, and most supply chain professionals, activate in a crisis mode. There's no such thing as normal anymore. It's from crisis to crisis. Now, if it wasn't COVID, which obviously is at a scale that we've never seen before, but we had volcano eruption in Philippines, in Iceland a few years ago. We had is there going to be a war between Iran and USA or not, right? You always have something happening.
Rogue wave. Right? There's all kinds of that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I think that kind of mindset of, okay, look, I'm the leader of the pack. I'm the leader of the team. I need to stand and I need to manage the team. I need to give them that calmness, that vision that, okay, how do we get together, do crisis management, risk management, assessment, fight teams, crisis teams, right? And get those going. And then one in particular there, I want to point out, on top of course, you need to be creative, entrepreneurial and all that, but one that is really distinguishing the ones that are making it well and actually thriving through this, and the ones that are not, is the building relationships and partnership skills. That is, I'm amazed at how many people have such a short, limited type of, no, give me cheaper rate, but this doesn't work. Right? I mean, this literally doesn't work. And especially when you're in a crisis mode, forget it. I mean, those people that you've tried to screw over price or to lower, they're going to just leave, okay, good luck now, right? So, your provider. So I'm talking both internally and externally. Yeah? It applies both, right? So obviously inside the organization, if you're on the supply chain side, you better have good relationships with the CFO, right? Or with the, marketing or sales. I mean, you can't, because otherwise you don't get anything done internally, but also externally with your partners. So I see that as a big differentiator. So all this, I hope I made it a bit more practical, but I think that soft skills,
I think that's really an important thing, is particularly the external relationships, because as this sort of came down, we reported on an article, and I can't remember exactly who it was, but they said it's too late to make friends now.
Yeah.
Right. You have to have nurtured a positive relationship with someone, and now be able to leverage and maybe even strain that relationship somewhat because of these difficult times. But it's too late to make friends now. And we're seeing that, by the way, in the PPE market, which is decidedly disjointed, corrupt, and inefficient. And there are a lot of people trying to, as you're talking about, Radu, they're trying to make a lot of snap judgments, quick moves, being opportunistic, and it's just not working.
Hey, if I could, the phrase that comes to mind for me is "Blessed are the peacemakers." We need peacemakers, folks that will build rapport with folks. To Greg's point, in advance, right? It's very difficult have that microwave relationship if you haven't really worked at it as a leader, is what I'm hearing Radu and Greg speak to. And it's so important right now, internally and externally. Real quick, before we get back to Greg and Radu here, I want to say hello to Fred Tolbert, who's tuned in, Kevin Bell, who's tuned in, Keith Singleton. Great to have Keith back with us on the live stream. I tell you, there was lots of T-shirt quotables last time Keith Singleton was here with us.
No doubt.
Joseph Moretta, and even Mr. Supply Chain, and I got to share it to prove it. Mr. Supply Chain, Daniel Stanton is here with us, the one and only.
We must have caught him between LinkedIn learning sessions, right?
Well, I haven't been able to get his agent on the phone.
Edits to his book, yeah.
Yes, Radu's agent was easier to get on the phone, but nevertheless, great to have all of these good people on the live stream for this conversation we're having with Radu. All right, back to the action.
I just wanted to add and build a little bit upon, because I think this is an important, because this is a mindset. So soft skills mostly stem, of course, you need to practice it, but it also starts with mindset. And this long-term mindset is something that so many people are failing at. It's just incredible. It's like, it's like you have the boss and says, okay, I need lower costs. So, okay, I'm going to go and screw my supplier. Yeah, but you can do that, but then a crisis will hit, and for sure that supplier will say, well, see you later, alligator, right? Because I have a lot of other people that are knocking on my door. So you screwed me, I'm going to screw you back, right? So pardon my French, but this is exactly what happens. And you don't build relationships over one interaction. You do it over time. So if you don't have the right mindset, that's it, right? So I think in a silver lining, the silver lining is that by hook or by crook, people need to have picked up after this. With sometimes some of them will go bust even, but hey, look, you can start again, right? So you'd better get on the bandwagon of long-term and relationship. Right. And I've seen companies that have this mindset that I think is exactly the right mindset, right? So top Fortune 500, and let's talk automotive, right? If one of your suppliers gets bust, you can't make the bloody car anymore, right? If you're missing one piece in your car, that's it, right? You can have all the rest of the suppliers, you can't build the car. So what I have seen, simplistically put an example, but it is a real example, right? So I've seen some of our clients that literally went to the supplier saying, okay, can we extend your payment terms? Can we fasten it? Can we help you with your, because they realize, look, we are all in this together. We have that ecosystem. And unless we do it together, I'm still going to be hurt, so I think that's the right type of approach.
I think that's one of the technical skills of crisis management too, is diversification and multiplication of sources, right? Don't have one person that makes that one part that could stop you from being produced, right? You have to, and I've seen companies that have done this for decades, and it still astounds me that there were such a large group, can't say if it was a majority or minority, but such a large group of companies that were completely stagnated by this crisis because they had no plan B. So I think that's another that's the technical side, right? Not the soft side, I guess, of crisis management is have a plan and have a plan B.
And you need to have one risk officer or some person that most companies had no even idea that term existed or that role existed. And it's like, no, get a risk person and listen to that risk person if you're going to get it, right? Because you can get one and then you just keep them somewhere in a corner of the office and never pay attention, right? So I think that has also changed. And also what has changed is the importance of supply chain. That's another thing that not most, I don't want to say most, but some companies are like, wow, what is supply chain, right? Just get my stuff delivered, right? Well, now I think they realize, well, without that, basically my business can go to pieces. So there's always silver linings, right? Now, if I can, point to where I see the market, right, and the talent and so on, I would say, again, I'm going to use a buzzword. I can't help it. I'll try to make it practical after this.
It's impossible not to, isn't it?
Yeah, but I promise it's not AI and it's not blockchain. And
okay, good. It's a new one.
Resilience.
No, so I see a explosion of companies needing digital skills. Now, what do I mean by digital skills? I mean a person in supply chain, project manager, director, operations head, whatever, you name it, that can come in and say, okay, guys, we don't have visibility. We don't have, we don't know where our stuff is. We don't know, our planning is all through the roof, and we're going to fail miserably. How do we pull up in 4 to 8 weeks You don't have 2 years. I don't want to name big companies. You don't have 3 years implementations. You have 4 to 8 weeks, right? So how do we do that? You need that type of, that's why I call digital skills, right? You've done it before. You know who to call. You know what kind of vendors and providers and partners can churn it up fast. And you are able, the technology is never the problem. The problem is, and this is where the crux is, how do you do the change management? How do you align the stakeholders? How do you get them together? How do you align the organization so that digital plus change management together is $1 million worth? And an organization are scrambling their head. Where do we find? Okay. So I think that's what I'm seeing, that it has further enhanced the price tag and the value that people see in that type of skills within supply chain.
That's a really good point. I think companies have less tolerance for a 3 to 5 year, $100 to $500 million implementation of an ERP system. And they shouldn't have to, by the way, because with the advent of cloud technologies that are configurable instead of customizable, they're more rapidly deployed and more supportable over the long term. And I hate to say this, but you made me think of this. They're virtually disposable. If you need a solution for a year while you move on to a more mature solution, you can absolutely do that. This on-demand nature of some of these technologies allows you to do that. And some of them are actually mature enough to be a long-term solution for you. Yep. But as you said, you have to align the organization, your business processes, management goals, and all of those things. And we can't have this, and we've had this for a lot of years, we can't have this plug in some tech and miracles will happen perspective, right? We have to get engaged as managers. You're right.
Yep. All right. So let's let our audience weigh in. We've got a couple of comments here I want to grab from our live stream. First off, I want to say hello to regular live streamer and fierce supply chain trivia competitor Benjamin Goldklang. Hopefully this finds you well. Thanks for tuning in. All right. So Anne says she agrees. Relationship management is a big part of supply chain management. Question: how did companies help supply chain people develop this mindset? Hiring the right people to begin with, or nurturing this mindset by having the right KPIs? Interesting comments and questions there from Anne. Thanks for tuning in. Sylvia weighs in. She loves this, a lot of what you're talking about. The 30, 60, 90-day snapshot vision has to change. Inclusiveness and shepherd leadership built strong culture and partnership. She's got friends in logistics for 38 years, which they are her mentors, kindred spirits, and customers. I'm not familiar, I don't think, with shepherd leadership, so maybe one of you are. But Sylvia, would love for you to kind of give us an explanation there. Benjamin weighs in. So he worked at a summer camp. He had a whole day of training dedicated to risk situations ranging from bee stings to bomb threats. Right. You never know what's going to happen. That, Greg, if we've said it once, we've said it 1,000 times about this, how risk has got maybe a couple seats at the table now. It's interesting to kind of hear that perspective and hear how it's getting, from Fortune 500 all the way down to summer camps where they're prepping folks for the what ifs. I mean, that's really where we are right now, right?
Yeah, I guess it's more natural for some people and therefore some organizations, but I've always been a person who tries to predict that which cannot possibly be predicted, right? And provision for that, right? Yep. Look at, it's one of the tenets of war planning, right? But look for what could happen. How could you get outflanked by a competitor or a situation, right? And provision for that. You don't have to have a grand plan for it, but you need to at least be aware that it could happen. And it's surprising that it doesn't, right?
Yep. Mr. Supply Chain, by the way, he thought your buzzword, Radu, was going to be control tower.
Oh, so that's a good guess.
We all were wrong there.
I'm afraid I don't know what is a control tower, so I'm trying not to use words that I don't understand myself.
That's good. Actually, we're going to talk about that on one of our next shows, is control towers. So, and what the heck that means. Yeah.
Daniel loves this combination of supply chain management and project management and digital skills. So good stuff there. Keith goes back to Ann's comment, and Keith says, hey, it's all about hiring the right people. And And
I'd like
finally,
to go back to Ann's question too
Yeah.
when we get a chance.
Yep. One last comment from the audience. Sean Conrad says change management and digitalization. I need another cup of coffee or two to get that right. So important. The culture must embrace the change to truly reap the rewards. Good stuff there from Sean. Okay, Greg, you want to go back for a minute?
I think it is hiring the right people. And of course, Keith, always with the wisdom, right? We need to get him back in the studio.
Yes.
But I think the second portion of Ann's question is particularly correct because you can misguide good people with bad motivation, and you get what you pay for, right? If you pay for reduction in cost for product, then what you're going to get is tough, brutal negotiations with vendors at the cost of anything else to get low cost. What I've often advocated and tried to do as a manager myself is to think through, right, the unintended consequences of KPIs and particularly of fiscal motivation of team members to make sure that we get exactly what we want. If we motivate this, then what is the bad result that we could get that we don't want, and think through that. And having had sales staffs at the companies that I've had, very, very conscious of what I want to motivate and how you want to organize the team to get the right results for your customers, for your business partners, for the internal team. It takes a lot of thinking, and you really have to take what is often a commonly applied model and assume it has something wrong with it and figure out what bad result it could motivate. Radu, I'd love to hear your thought there.
So firstly, I could not agree more with Keith. And if you do need any help for hiring, I know a very good company. And
can you tell us who that would be?
Don't hesitate. I happen to know also the MD is a good friend of mine when I look in the mirror. So Alcott Global is. So shameless plug. I move on to the actual answer to the question. So yes, we are in recruitment, but I do believe. I mean, I am also passionate, and I do believe that it is. But again, I'm saying something that is so fundamental, but I'll say it anyways. It's all about the people, right? I mean, for now, robots are not ruling the world. For now, and,
right?
It's all about the people. You can have the best technology, the best whatever. You have a crap team. You have a team that doesn't get together. Right? It's like in football or whatever, basketball. You can have the top stars. They don't work together. They don't play together. You're going to lose. You're going to lose to a mediocre team that plays together, right? So you get the right people. You get the right results. Now, mindset, right? How do you get that mindset? How do you get that long term? Well, it starts at the top.
Yes.
Right? You got the wrong chief supply chain officer, chief executive officer, you're screwed. That's it. I mean, it's as simple as that, right? So, yes, KPIs, absolutely spot on, Greg. And the KPIs come from that mindset, right? So fundamentally, I like to look at 3,000 feet, right? 3,000 feet, you've got the right mindset from the sea level. It will cascade down. It will see each other. You will see it in and observe it in the KPIs. You will observe it in the mindset of the people. Those people will hire people that fit within that. No, we here. This is how we do things in this company. That's basically what mindset is, right? It's culture. It translates into the culture of the company.
Right.
And basically, that's when you've got that long term. Does it happen overnight? Do you just, walk into the room and then all of a sudden, okay, guys, from tomorrow, we're going to think long term? Screw that. No, of course not, right? I mean, unless you demonstrate it, you walk the talk, you do it yourself as the leader of the team, chief supply chain officer, chief operations officer, whatever it may be, right? And you do it consistently over a period of time, and you hire people and embrace the team and encourage them, it ain't going to happen. So I think it's, hiring the right people is a big chunk of that. And at the same time, it has to start at sea level. If it's not there, you can have it in pockets, right? You can have the best intention as the supply chain director. You may have it at the personal level. You may endorse it in your team. But if you also get a KPI from the top that says, look, get me the lowest cost, I dare you build the strongest long-term partnership.
Radu, you're gaining some fans here. The dog weighs in. Clay Phillips says you can hear the passion in Radu's voice and philosophy. And I got to tell you, it's been a little while since we connected on a call, Radu. And I always knew you had some passion, but man, you clearly love. it seems like you're enjoying this lifelong study on leadership and culture and talent and what makes certain businesses thrive while others flail about.
I mean, I can only agree with that. So thank you.
Man, you dialed it
I'm
back.
not going to disagree with that. So I mean, I appreciate it, Scott. I mean, you tell me where the bank account, and I'll transfer it.
Okay. All right. So
that's a really valid point, though. And I neglected to say that is that culture in any company starts at the top, whether intentional or by mistake. The culture begins with the chief executive officer, right? Whoever guides the entirety of the team sets that culture for better or for worse. So that's a really excellent point, Radu. And I think that you experience that a lot. Placing executives, you must experience the situation. You must have experienced the situation to give you such passion that you've placed somebody you know is really special inadvertently in a culture that doesn't fit them, and it's created issues. I wonder.
I try not to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally take these things, and I mean, it has evolved, and I'm not going to sit here and claim that, I'm Mother Teresa and I've always been this, but we do have principles ourselves, right? So as a headhunter, you try to do the right thing, right? Because you are basically playing. You're not playing, but you're influencing people's lives, right? I mean, somebody making the wrong career decision that influences him, her, family, the company, right? So it's a bunch of things that are connected to that. So we really try to. And can we, did we achieve the silver bullet? Can you always get it right? No, because you know why? Because we're human beings, right? And, even if the board has a certain idea at some point and engages us, or the CEO or whoever engages us, that idea can change, or they may not realize that they have missing pieces. And to the best of our ability and knowledge, we of course try to be like detective, like Sherlock Holmes, and like explore different things and make sure that when we go to market and everything is aligned, and still it can go to pieces because we're humans after all, right? So we're not machines. But I would say that it's not possible. I mean, it's basically, if you hire the right person in the wrong culture, it's going to fail. Even if that person is Cristiano Ronaldo, Leonardo, or Messi. I mean, I'm just using football analogies because I like football, right? And I actually don't like Cristiano Ronaldo, but I like Messi. So, you hire Messi, but that's it, right? The team, they don't want to play with him. So what do you expect that to happen? You either empower Messi and say, look, you fire everybody that you don't like or doesn't get on the bandwagon, right? Messi, you're the CEO. You're the captain of the team. Fire everybody who doesn't listen. We give you full empowerment. We're the board. Go for it. This is what we need to achieve. This is a long term. If you do that, no problem. Then you can rebuild, and maybe it's not going to happen in the first year, the second year, but you're going to have it in the third year. But you hired Messi, and you say, yeah, but I like this X, Y, Z, and you have to find a way to play with them. No. Then forget it. Then don't hire Messi. Just keep doing what you're doing, because they're going to fail. And those one X, Y, Z are going to kill Messi after all, because they're going to be politics and they're going to be all sorts of things.
Right.
I mean, I'm just trying to keep it real. This has happened. I've seen it. It will continue to happen. So let's stop fooling around, right? Because it's very expensive for companies to do it.
Right.
Actually, it affects the credibility as well as the emotions of a lot of people in big organizations, but I keep seeing this. So, fundamentally, I hope I'm somewhat giving a flavor to it.
Don't hire a tiger and immediately put him in a cage. Right. I mean, that is really the essence. I read that in a book somewhere.
All right. So we're working through your top 3 observations, Radu, and I don't want to. We got some comments I want to share from the audience. I'm not sure if we hit everything on your list, but
I have the third one. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, real quick, I'm gonna recognize a few comments here we had from the audience. One, we were talking about risk earlier. Kevin Bell weighs in. They're seeing an increase in patent litigation lawsuits related to supply chain technologies, which is not a surprise, but it's got to be paid attention to by supply chain companies. Good stuff there. Kind of a different twist on risk. Don Long. Don, I know you weighed in earlier on the value of veterans within supply chains. We'll wrap back around on that, but he's really enjoying the people conversation. Agreed. Nurfad says culture is everything. And then he follows that up with not even bacteria can thrive without culture. Good stuff there.
Man, I'm telling you, he needs his own show.
Yeah, he does. Steve Green. Steve, hope this finds you well. Thanks for tuning in on LinkedIn. Leadership transforms the culture. And then finally, Keith, the smell of the place tells you a lot. We're in the people business. Every stakeholder is equally important. And finally, Rob Morris says, this is an awesome way of thinking. I'm on board with this as I'm starting my own business with this, probably the people first mentality being front and center. And if I got that wrong, Rob, please let me know.
Rob,
okay.
Culture is everything. And whether you do it intentionally or mistakenly, you will set the culture. So be very, very intentional.
Excellent point. All right, Radu, big number 3. And then we're going to move to your tips on how companies can get more serious about bringing talent on. Radu, go ahead.
The third piece that I wanted to bring about is the reality in such crises like COVID and in the subsequent full-on economic crisis that we are experiencing and economic challenges that we are experiencing. A lot of people are wondering, right? You end up wondering, am I going to lose my job? Is the company going to restructure? Am I safe? What's going to happen to me? Then you have, 40 million unemployed. I haven't followed the numbers recently, but, millions and millions unemployed in the US. It's happening everywhere. Singapore, where I am, Asia overall, right? So it's something. So uncertainty is a big, big fear. Let's use simple words. It's fear, right? People are afraid, right? So people in organizations would be afraid. Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to have an income? So how do you deal with that, right? So there is obviously, because you don't want to lose your top talent, because they might say, oh, I'm not so sure if the company is going anywhere, so let me just flip my CVs around and they will find a job, right? And you also want to make sure that the motivation or peace of mind is there so that people can continue to perform and do their, jobs and obviously mitigate that. And on top of that, you have work from home and all the other things that have added stress into this environment in the last 3 to 6 months, right? Depending on where we are and where we live. So I would say that there's 2 pieces to this, right? So one piece is the executive, C-level, whoever is leading the company, is their job, is their responsibility to over-communicate, to be there, to say, look, this is what we're doing, try to help depending on possibilities, right? Maybe a Google will give people $2,000 to buy stuff for their house, to buy a desk and whatnot. Maybe another company doesn't have that much money, right? But you can do small things. You can do conferences. You can do check-ins. You can do so many simple, free, human, fundamentally good behaviors just to show your stuff and show your team, look, I'm there with you. We will get through this. We might need, right? Keep it real as well, right? Airbnb guy, look, he kept it real. Sorry, guys, we have to let go of people. I mean, what can I do, right? But I have a pledge here. I don't know if you saw that memo. I have a pledge. I will do my best, to help you guys and so on, right? That's the right way to do it. Then you have another company that I'm not going to name because they did a shit job at it. Pardon my French. They just fired everybody over a Zoom conference call, and it wasn't even pre-framed. I mean, that's absolutely an idiotic behavior, right?
Yeah.
I'm using very strong words, but it is an idiotic behavior, because then you basically send the message to your staff that I don't really care about you, right? So, okay, great. Then, don't be surprised that they're going to jump ship at the first option that they're going to get. And
That's
secondly, you just destroyed your employer brand. Like who will want to work with you with such behaviors, right? So again, long-term, short-term, that discussion that we just had,
right?
It reflects here as well. So, okay, so that's on the executive side. But on the employee side, because it's not like you're just, in the middle of a rough sea and a storm and there's nothing and you're helpless and, you just let the waves hit you in the head. No, we have also, as employees, you have control, right? So you can take ownership for your own learning. So will companies restructure? Will they reorganize? Yeah. I mean, this happened before the crisis. It's going to happen after the crisis. It's going to happen in between the crisis. Accept it. Change is the only constant, right? So, I mean, you don't like it? Well, tough luck, right? I mean, you want to fight reality? You're going to lose. So basically, that's something that I'm passionate and also trying to tell people, look, it's okay to feel fear. I feel fear, right? Everybody feels fear. But don't get paralyzed by it, right? Or maybe be paralyzed 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I don't know. But go speak to your friends, get different ideas, right? And do something. Like pick up a course, go on Coursera, do a bunch of things to hone your digital skills, right? Project management, listen to Mr. Supply Chain on LinkedIn, pick up some new ways of doing stuff, take on some new projects, do some new things that can, get you in the best position that even if the company will change, because they will change, the companies will change, you still have the relevant skill sets to keep yourself valid with the right type of value add that you can provide to the company. So I would put this into a big bowl of constant learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's a really, really good approach, is always be improving, right? Always happy, but never satisfied, right?
Yeah.
Always be thankful for where you are, but always be reaching for more.
Yep. And organizations and leadership have a big part of the onus there to make sure they're investing in their team and helping them develop into, not being the same person in the same seat doing the same things 5 years later or even 1 year later. So it's really important. All right, so we've kind of walked through Radu's top 3 observations of the current talent market, and a lot of stuff to digest there. Greg, I think next.
So we know a lot of things are going to be changing, right? Lots of companies have, as you said, unemployment is rampant everywhere, right? In the States, approaching depression era levels. So we know that there's going to be a lot of shifting, right? When the economy comes back, or as companies start to come back online, there's going to be a lot of shifting. Certain companies even had an active strategy to exit their least performers and try to upskill when the economy comes back from this massive pool of talent. So there's going to be I think it's still going to be an employer's market, but there's going to be a lot of good talent in the marketplace. So how does a company position themselves to attract that top talent? Scott used the term employer of choice, right? But how do you be that company that is able to get the best talent when things start to turn around and you start to hire staff back?
Yes. If I'm to distill a little bit, and I don't want to claim that I have the solution, but
what the heck,
just
claim it.
One, yeah, exactly. I was just trying to be modest. Actually, it never works for me. But so my point of view, simplistically, is walk the talk. What do I mean by that? Do you know the term NATO? NATO,
the acronym,
the military,
NATO,
okay, the military stuff. But it does also stand for something. It stands for no action, talk only. So let me share what I mean by walk the talk and avoid NATO, right? In essence, most, if not all, but most of the companies on this planet, unless you're selling arms or you're an illegal cartel somewhere,
right?
You have good vision, you have good values on your walls, correct? You walk into the office and then you're like, okay, these are the principles. Like I said, look, Alcott Global stands, we connect the supply chain ecosystem. So I think most companies, we can agree, have the right fundamentals in place. The problem, also, most companies have no freaking clue what those values are, what they stand for, and what are we doing here? Apart from cashing in a paycheck, right? So I don't want
how to live them every day, right? Yeah.
I can say that as a headhunter and executive search, I have not come across a lot of companies where this was clear from the top, all the way cascaded down. It may be on the walls, and I have come across plenty of places where they was on the walls, and you ask the CEO, "What's your values?" And like, I don't know. Can you list your values? Right? Now, of course, I don't necessarily want to ask such questions because but sometimes I do, because that's so obvious. If you do not know what you stand for, like you rightfully said, culture happens anyways, whether it's conscious or unconscious. Whether you guide it or you don't guide it, it still happens. It's the way people behave. Yeah, you don't want as the CEO to take ownership for that. Well, tough luck. Anyways, it's going to happen. So it just means that you're not a good CEO. I'm sorry. So employer of choice. You want to be employer of choice? Well, walk the talk. You have nice values. You have nice vision, right? Be the Airbnb guy. Don't be the other jerks that fires their staff over Zoom and then expect that when this comes up, all the talent will jump at you and say, oh, I really wish I can work for you guys and get fired over Zoom. It's my dream. Right? I mean, seriously, it's such simple, fundamental stuff that, yeah, walk the talk. So I'm sure most companies have really good fundamentals. They have good vision. They have good values. But is the board still knowing their values? Are they still walking their values, or are they just caring about how much the stock price is?
Yeah, good intentions, right? As my great-grandmother
so basically
half the hell is paved with good intentions, right?
You need to treat people right. And how you treat people now, and how do you communicate to your staff, and how do you treat your teams, and how do you, obviously, what do you put out in the world? Are you a type of company that helped others and gave masks? And, there's been plenty of good examples when people and companies came together in this crisis and helped the broader society, right? Not necessarily, of course, it's good PR, of course, it's good marketing, of course, they're not totally selfless, but still they're doing their part, right? As opposed to others who just took advantage of every little thing to make more money.
All right. So we got a question from Kevin Bell. But you got to give us, you were talking about the boardroom and C-level executives, you got to give us the 15-second answer for the sake of time here, Radu.
Is that even possible, Radu?
Kevin asked, do you believe there will be a shakeup in C-suite executives to make sure you've got new leaders in old companies to adapt? Your Reader's Digest response to that.
Yes.
Okay. Love it. I love it.
Look, yes, 10 seconds more. A lot of companies will fail. You'll see more of this. What was that company? Hertz or what? So the car rental. Yeah. You will see more. This crisis will only make the failure of the ones that are unsuccessful faster. And basically, they will need to change if they're going to survive. So hence, they need to change the C-suite.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent.
Which is a good point, because Hertz already has. Right? They did recently, and then they will again. Yeah.
So. All right. So I hate to keep moving. I love, this could be an all day discussion. Radu, I love your perspective and your passion. Yeah. All right. So moving right along, let's, again, in a nutshell, tell us about this upcoming virtual supply chain summit. Again, Supply Chain Now is a proud media partner as part of this global event. And Radu, the reaction to this first digital event has been overwhelming from what I understand, right?
No, and I just want to also thank you guys a lot for all that you're doing and sharing and all the the help that you have lended us in terms of promoting this. So deeply appreciate it. Yeah, look, it's the first time we're doing it, but it has been mind-blowing response. So we have close to 5,000 professionals in supply chain executives all over the world joining. We literally have 106 countries at the last count. And it's going to be a fantastic lineup of speakers. You can find all the details. These are some of our keynote speakers, but on top of this, we have approximately 40 to 50 other panelists and speakers from all over the world. We try to keep it very diverse. We basically want this to be a knowledge sharing for the world of supply chain globally. We have literally every continent covered. And it's going to be hopefully it's going to feel like a TED type of a conference. And on top of that, we're going to have 2 weeks of online networking. We have a platform that enables that one-on-one connection. So I think people will be thrilled by that value in terms of connecting to supply chain, like-minded individuals in different parts of the world, in the same part of the world that they are. So really excited. I really hope that many of the ones that are listening, if you haven't registered, do register, and I hope to see you there.
Outstanding. Great lineup of speakers. We can't go through all of that right now. We don't have time, but an outstanding lineup of speakers, of thought leaders, of folks that are true specialists in their area and beyond. And I bet, I don't know, the topic of leadership and culture, Greg, may or may not come up every day, all day as part of
it. I can't imagine that it would. Yeah, no, of course it will. Right. I'm interested to see this, a lot of, webinaring and conferencing and that sort of thing. It's great to have somebody, Radu, with your influence and your reach around the world, do something like this to bring a bunch of companies together. Lots of companies are doing these things for themselves, but it's great to see somebody pulling the talent from a great wealth of companies together to have these discussions.
Yep. And the good news is you can still register. I think there's still room, and there's about a month. It's about a month away. So, Radu, let's make sure folks know how they can find you, how they can find Alcott Global, and how they can find this event.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sure. So, I mean, with me, it's the easiest is to find me on LinkedIn. I have mostly maxed out my connection limit. So, the easiest is to hit follow. I'm sorry, I cannot really accept much more, but follow, and then happy to engage and happy to. I mean, and I was so thrilled that I saw quite a few of the people that have been commenting that I know as well, and great to see such a close community, even if globally we're so many in supply chain, but it's still a small world. So that's with me. Now with the company Alcott Global, you can go to our website. You can follow also the company on LinkedIn. Because there's some interesting articles, reports, and so on that we are sharing. And for the event, yes, still 1 month to go. You can register anytime. The sooner the better, because there's some discounts and some promo prices that you can be eligible for. We also have, I just want to do this plug for any students or people that are coming from countries that may not be, may qualify as emerging economies. Do drop me a note and I'll make sure that you can attend if price is an issue. So no problem. And for students specifically, we have free passes. So you just need to write to me or somebody in my team. And yeah, the event, you can find all the information also on the website.
Yeah.
Love that. Love that. Hey, along those lines of what Radu just shared, and Don, I know you're a veterans advocate that's on the live stream. If you're a veteran tuned in today and you're looking to build your network and make that tough transition, sometimes tough transition to the private sector, reach out to us. Now, if you're retired 06, I think you can afford your registration fees, but if making ends meet is challenging right now, reach out to me and we'll see what we can do. Scott at supplychainnowradio.com. This is an outstanding virtual networking and professional development opportunity, and want to make sure you can take advantage if
absolutely. I'll just build upon that. So we've actually had one or two that are from the U.S. military specifically, and I was proud to be able to support in some small way. So absolutely, like even if it is a developed economy, if you struggle right now, we've had some other people. If you lost your job, or if write to us. And we will do our best to accommodate. Now, I can't promise a free ticket for everybody, but I can promise heavily discounted. Just write, tell us what's your story, and happy to help.
Appreciate that. Really appreciate that sentiment, Greg. That's awesome. So Don Long and Daniel Stanton and any other veteran advocates, reach out and we'll see what we can do. Okay, so we got to keep driving. And Greg, respond to where Radu's coming from here. I think that's a breath of fresh air in today's environment, huh?
It's an explosion of fresh air is what it is, and I'm glad to hear it. Frankly, I'm thankful for the passion and the knowledge and the broad base that, Radu, you're sharing this from, right? You've even prompted questions from the great Daniel Stanton. In fact, one question that he asked was, how do companies teach and enforce their values? So very briefly, you teach and enforce your values by hiring by them and doing so consciously and explicitly. Let people know what your values are when you hire them. You repeat your values constantly. People don't hear you once until you've told them 7 times. Let me repeat that. I'm not going to repeat it 7 times. People don't hear you for the first time until you've told them something 7 times. So consciously and explicitly repeat those values. We actually did it in every company I ran. We did it every week and gave a specific example. This is what customer obsession, which was one of our values, was. This is what customer obsession means. And Bobby enunciates it by doing X, right? Things like that. But also you have to hire and fire by them. We had a no strikes rule. If you failed at if you were a no on any of the core values, you were gone. So things like that are very, very important to communicate, to teach, and enforce your values. Go ahead, Radu.
30 seconds. The best illustration of that Ken Allen, CEO and board member in DHL, transformed loss-making DHL Express 2 billion euros to profit-making DHL Express 2 billion euros. So 4 billion transformation. He explains, we had him on the podcast, so you can look up Ken Allen Alcott podcast, listen to that. It's just 40 years of experience in that. And he explains how he took values and made it live from the top to the career that may or may not have gone to school, how he used music, just a brilliant, so I just endorse that podcast to everybody. So just listen to that and you will get some of the top answers.
Love it.
Great.
Love it. All right. So we're going to keep driving a couple upcoming events. SAP Sapphire Now Reimagined and specifically Converge kicked off yesterday. Had a few technology glitches. Hey, in this day and age when internet usage is record breaking and you've got 100,000 people sign up, sometimes that happens. The good news is I think the keynote from yesterday and some other sessions are available on demand now. And what's that?
And Sting.
Yes, Sting was incredible. And of course, as you might expect, an outstanding tech company like SAP, they got it fixed. So today should roll off without a hitch, and it's free. Like a lot of the cool things Radu's doing. So I think we've got the direct link to register or to plug in the show notes, and join Greg and I as we tune in and check out the rest of the this week's events at SAP Sapphire Now. Okay, Radu. This one here, upcoming webinar, June 25th, all about ERP in the post-pandemic environment. Looking forward to Rootstock joining us for that. Hey, we just added
How's that for a juxtaposition, though, Scott? One of the biggest, the biggest ERP in the industry, and a cloud provider in ERP. You're going to get both perspectives, right?
Great point.
It's going to be interesting juxtaposition of viewpoints. Look, from both of those companies.
Yep. And once I close out today's live stream, I'm going to go to the dictionary and find out what juxtaposition. What
Me
that
too.
means.
I probably should also, since I used it.
I love that. That's a great comment, Greg. Great comment. And we've just added yesterday, as a matter of fact, a couple folks from the Vitamin Angels will be joining. As they've recently had some ERP revelations that they're going to be sharing. So a lot of good stuff there on June 25th. On a much different note, this conversation we're having July 15th, Radu would love for you to join us as well, because this really needs to be a global conversation, despite a lot of the challenges we're having here in the States here recently. But this is going to be a frank, passionate, transparent conversation, a learning opportunity, not just, Greg, we talked about this yesterday. We've got this great panel here, but we don't just want to hear from the panelists. We want the global interactive audience to tune in and share their insights and their experiences and their perspectives, because what we're after, Greg, is a conversation, the dialogue itself, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we're going to get some great perspectives from some very thoughtful leaders on this topic, Tandria and David and DC. But I think it's time for an open dialogue here, right? So let's make it back and forth.
Yeah.
Right. If you get the chance, I think we talked about this yesterday on the Buzz as well, Scott. Read Harvard Business Review, an article in Harvard Business Review from way back 2002, I think, called "Dear White Boss." Interesting, very well thought out perspective of Black leaders, particularly Black leaders, but in whatever country you're in, figure similar concerns by whatever minority groups you have in your respective countries, but very interesting perspective of how life is lived as a minority, even in leadership every day.
Yeah. Seek first, understand. We'll all be a lot better off if that's all what we all do. All right. And finally, so join us for that special event, a special conversation, July 15th. If there's something you cannot find, supplychainradio.com. We've got Radu's event on there. We've got both of those webinars on there. We've got, our library of podcasts, you name it. And of course, if you can't find something you're looking for, Amanda at supplychainnowradio.com. All right. As we close out, Radu, boy, we have really, this conversation's run the gamut. I really admire, and I don't say it if I don't mean it, the passion and the energy you bring to this conversation really helps because it's so critical, right? The right people in the right roles, and the cultural side, and the professional development side, and the constantly learning. Sometimes you need to get kind of smacked across the face to understand, hey, this is really, really important stuff. And this is how we're going to get through these challenging times, by kind of getting back to the basics. And so kind of what you bring to the table to help with that smack in the face, again, as Greg said, it was an explosion of fresh air. Is that, you got to coin that, Greg? That might be our latest t-shirt ism.
No, thank you for the good words. My pleasure to have shared, and hope it was relevant.
Yeah, well, according to all the comments we're getting from the live stream and the folks that have tuned in, I think they enjoyed it, hopefully, as much as we did. But Radu, one last word from you, and then we're going to see you next time on Supply Chain Now. So if folks paid attention to one thing, what would that be?
I will say yourselves. I mean, I think that's the only piece that we have full control on. So, you don't change your CEO, you don't change. So, I mean, this was a great discussion, but when it comes down to what can we influence, it's ourselves. I mean, again, fundamentals, but don't bitch, don't moan, I don't know what can you do to change your reality, and then the reality, and help the reality around you. And I think we, as the overall global supply chain community, we can come together and help each other. So I think we start by changing ourselves, a fundamental, and let's help the others as well.
Love that, Greg. Love it.
And every episode, do good, give forward, and be the change. Right. And you can only do that from yourself out. So,
yep. And we really mean that. The other thing that comes out is GSD, get stuff done, take action. Don't. Yeah. That's right. But, to what Radu is saying, take action, make it happen, own it. So with all that said, Radu, a pleasure. Thanks so much for tuning in here today. We've had Radu Palamariu, Managing Director, Asia Pacific with Alcott Global. We've got the link to his event across all streams. We've got his LinkedIn profile, direct link in the show notes. So Radu, thanks so much.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thanks. All right. So with that said, Greg, really enjoyed today's episode. To our audience, as Greg shared already, hey, do good, give forward, be the change, take control, get stuff done. Greg, we want to
own it.
Own it. Yeah. Own it. But Greg, thanks for tuning in early on Talent Tuesday here at Supply Chain Now, right?
I'm a giver. What can I say? I will actually show up for work on time, no matter what time that is.
Well, to our audience, thank you for tuning in as well. Thanks for all the comments. No, we couldn't get to all of them and some of the questions, but take care of yourselves, invest in yourselves, and of course, take action. Seek first to understand, get involved in the tough conversations and the uncomfortable conversations. That's the only way things get better. Greg, you were going to...
Can't believe you haven't said this yet, so I'm going to say it for you, Scott. Deeds, not words.
Yep.
The opposite of NATO is deeds, not words.
Yep. And that's a perfect way to end today's live stream. Thanks so much for tuning in. On behalf of Greg, the whole team here, on behalf of Radu, have a wonderful week ahead, and we'll see you next time here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
I'm energized.